Welcome to the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. We'll be sitting down with a fresh guest each week. Someone who shares the same kayak fishing passion that runs through our veins. We're talking kayak anglers, kayak companies, lure experts. Heck, anyone who's got a story to tell about landing the big ones from a kayak. We're setting our sights on becoming the #1 kayak fishing podcast in the world. You'll get a chuckle, a grin, and hey, maybe even a belly laugh. Because we believe in the power of humor. But above all, we're here to educate and inspire. So, whether you're a seasoned kayak angler or just dipping your toes into this exhilarating world, join us on the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. It's time to reel in adventure, camaraderie, and the joy of the catch. Here's your host, Darren Wendell.
Hey, fish freaks. Welcome to podcast episode number 84 of the Kayak Fishing Obsessed show, brought to you by Wendell Fishing. So check out all that Wendell Fishing has to offer at www.wendellfishing.com and also kayakfishingobsessed.com. If you haven't been over there, check that out. Just built those websites out just a few weeks ago. And I'm just going to hop right on to the big announcement, right? I don't do a lot of big announcements. And if you're watching in live, you might kind of already have a hint of what that may be. I've been tickling this out there a little bit, and I've been thinking about this for some time, right? I want to round out this podcast. I fish Northeast Ohio, and now we have representation from Florida because I want to introduce to everybody my new co-host, Seth Taylor. Seth,
welcome. What's up? Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah. So I know what's going to end up happening. There's going to be a lot of people that end up liking you more than like me, and I foresee like a coup in the future. So
that'd be nice.
I already know it's going to happen. So this is kind of something just had naturally. I fished with Seth in my in tournaments on the same team before. I mean, there's a lot that he brings to the table that I don't bring to the table. He uses FFS. I don't. Not that I'm against it. I just don't have it. He fishes a lot of tournaments. I don't fish a lot of tournaments. He places in the top 3 a lot. I don't place in the top 3 a lot. And so he fishes in Florida. I fish in Ohio. And so this is going to bring the KFO show kind of to the next level. So I'm really excited about that, Seth, and excited about you joining the crew. I just enjoyed just our conversations around fishing. So awesome. All right. Now that that's aside, and I'll do a one-on-one with Seth probably in, I don't know, March or so, where we kind of just get to know him a little bit. We're booked out all the way to March. We got a ton of guests. So excited about that. But
tell them how much leeway you gave for me for this. How much heads up you gave for me for this podcast here.
What are you talking about? We talked about this for months.
I'm like Darren. Let me set up my office. Let me get it looking nice in the backdrop. I wanted to have some notes prepared, things I wanted to ask, all that stuff. I'm like, maybe we should start next week with me. He's like, nah, just hop on tonight. Hop on. You'll be fine. Just hop on. So I'm here.
Your backdrop looks 1,000 times better than Debo's fishing. So you look organized and, all that jazz. That's good. I like it. Well, tonight, folks, we got Andy, Dill, and Christina Dill on tonight. And I'm excited. Christina, welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody.
Andy, where did you go?
Turn the lights on, Andy.
What in the world? He's gone. He was here. Christina, what did you do?
I don't know. He's not even in the same state as me at this point.
Yeah, he's traveling right now. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's back.
There he is.
Hey, welcome. Welcome to the show. You were frozen in my green screen, like sideways.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Yeah, I was just here for the big announcement, and then I split.
There it is. Yeah. I like it. Well, Andy and Christina, this has been an annual thing for the last 2 years. This is now the 3rd one that we're doing. And we always do the best and worst kayaks. And it YouTube freaking sends it to the moon every time. Yeah. I think it's quality. You have a lot of history. You worked managing a kayak who sells kayaks. You're no longer doing that. We'll get to that in a moment. And I really just appreciate your vast knowledge on it. And so I've always learned, I feel like a lot of people have learned. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is top 5 best, top 5 worst. But then I want to give a little fanfare to the middle, right? A lot of times we talk about all these brands that are at the top, Bonafide, Old Town, Hobie, Native, New Canoe, Jackson, but we forget the forgotten middle, right? And so we're going to be talking a little bit about, feel freeze, perception, vibes, wilderness systems, ascend, lifetimes a little bit as well. So this is going to be good. But first, before we get started, two things. One, Andy, what you been up to? Because last time you were on the show, you're working all day, every day in a kayak shop. And I don't believe you're doing that now because you're in a hotel.
So Ozark Mountain Trading Company announced that they were going to be, compressing and consolidating, and it's something that has been honestly a lot of people are feeling that. It may not be so much a business decision as some of these people that own these businesses are, maybe they're getting close to retirement age and there's nobody ready to take it over. That's happened to two very large retailers just here in Arkansas and really all over the country. And some of it has been, a lot of those paddle shops have maybe not adapted with the current market trends, or, maybe COVID, maybe people came into it in COVID. I had James with Midwest Kayak Company on here a few days ago, and we talked a little bit about this, but, the local paddle shop is struggling to an extent, and the business in general is just struggling to adapt. And you got retail, you got big box store, you've got really public perception is another thing too, but not so much. And we'll get into that a little bit with the list here because I've got my reasons. But I feel like a lot, not all, but a lot of companies have abandoned that middle to lower, that entry level kayak. And, when I say entry level, I'm not talking about your grocery store and your farm supply store kayak so much as a good, usually people, when they're buying what they think of a high quality kayak, they already know they're going to spend about $600 to $1,000. Well, that price point has moved up to $1,000 to $1,500. And if you're just on the outside looking in or just looking to get your feet wet, that's a lot of money. And it's a lot of money to anybody, really. I don't care what, what your income is, if you got all this disposable income, if you go to a kayak store and you come home and your wife has no clue what you've been doing, and you tell her you're looking at spending $1,500 on a plastic boat, she is going to have some things to say to you about that. So I'm blessed. I'm married.
Sounds like this is coming from some personal experience.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm blessed that I married a woman who enjoys being on the water, and she grew into fishing with being with me, and we're kind of opposite. So fishing got me.
You don't? Because that's
exactly
what happened last. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Fishing got me into kayaking, and being on the water got her into fishing. So, but yeah, she worked alongside me at the store for several times of the year, and really kind of grew in that as well. So she definitely brings a different perspective, which is always good, which is why we like doing the live streams together here. So. But yeah, that's the biggest thing. I think I just did the video on has the kayak industry peaked?
Ooh, I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and in my opinion, it has but just from a different perspective. So COVID everything exploded. Everybody had if you got a stimulus check and you didn't really need it, you're like, okay, let's buy an RV, or let's buy a kayak, or let's buy some, and the industry struggled to keep up. So we saw some quality issues. We saw some inventory issues more than anything. And it got more people into it that may have needed that push. That time definitely did it. Well, what happened was it's very similar to somebody that watched Sons of Anarchy and went out and bought the Harley and all the leathers and the helmets and all that. And just, now you're seeing kayaks on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and you're seeing these things all rigged up and they don't look like they've ever been wet. So, it's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses. It's a lot of, there's that bubble finally bursting, which we all knew it would. It really it's going to force manufacturers, kayak companies to go back to that value proposition, because the prices don't necessarily have to come down, but you've got to really have something to show for what you're paying for too.
No, I get it. I got my stimulus check years ago, and I went out and bought a Native Slayer Propel 10. And so I am literally
You're one of those
one of those individuals.
Yeah.
So are we.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So are we.
Did you have yours before then, or did you just go out and buy a bunch of
I did not. We kind of now floating on the water in a paddle craft is not new to me, but as far as getting into what I would call like that mid to high level, we were blessed to have a kayak retail store just right next to us, and this is before I worked there, of course. But we went down there. It's like, what, and honestly, full disclosure, we went to the grocery store and we saw these kayaks standing up, and I'm like, that looks like that would be fun. And I'm not an impulsive buyer necessarily. So we went out, we looked at it, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to put my butt in this thing and go out on the open water. It was flimsy. You can tell it wasn't really made sturdy enough. And I'm a bigger guy, so I needed something with a little bit more capacity, something I can carry more gear in. Mm-hmm. And, we have some pretty, I wouldn't call it whitewater or anything, but we've got some pretty adventurous water that, you can kind of find yourself in a bad situation if you don't have something that can kind of handle that. And, so we went down the shop, and she went down there first, and I was doing insurance at the time. So, she called me and said, well, they've got some stuff, but you really need to come down and take a look at it. So we both came back, and I can't remember. I want to say they were trying to put me in one kayak, and I just the seating wasn't comfortable for me. And they had the Wilderness Ride 115 on markdown because they discontinued them. So we bought this thing brand new for like $6.99, and we bought hers. Hers was a Perception Pescador 10.
Oh, yeah.
And we bought it for like $549. Okay. And, got some decent paddles, and, we started floating around, and before you knew it, I was fishing. It's like, I want to say trip number 1, we were fishing. So and then of course, then I got the job managing the store, and then I saw a new canoe Frontier 12 with the spinning, 360 seat, and it's set up high, and it was open deck. And I'm like, oh my God, because this stuff wasn't in stock when we were originally looking. And I told her, I was like, I'm about to put us in a financial situation here, because this thing it's so comfortable, and it's stable, and you sit up real high, stand up and fish from, and the rest is history. We don't, neither one of us park our vehicles in our garage, because it's just nothing but kayaks and gear and all of the above in there.
Ladies out there, find someone who talks about fishing kayaks, like talks to you that way, like Andy talks about fishing kayaks. Yeah. I mean, the way that you just described that beautiful creature. Christina, did he talk to you that way?
Sometimes.
Okay. All right. Now we're talking. I'm not going to ask any more questions before this goes off the rails. But let's bring this back. Oh my gosh, there are some comments I want to head back over to before we get too far. Larry Thornton's Marketplace is a place to find your starter kayak. 100%. That's where I found mine. Yeah. I've never bought a MSRP kayak. They've all become from Marketplace, and you just get steals. And I walk up, and it looks like a showroom floor. I was like, how many times have you guys been in this? I was in it once, and I didn't like how it felt in the water. I was like, why in the world did you buy it? I was like, all right, I'll take it off your hands. Colin B. Basson, I'm upgrading from a cheap Pelican to either a Nuclear Flint or Crescent Light Tackle 2. Bucktail, my Unlimited, my first new kayak, the 5 before the 5 before it were all Team Marketplace. Got it. Sauce, what's the best kayak? We'll get to that in a minute. Someone said they enjoyed that video that you kicked out this past week. I need to actually go watch it. I know you just explained it a little bit. Lifetime Tamarack Pro here. So before we move forward, do you have any other thoughts on that video? As far as have we peaked?
Yeah. So the one interesting thing about that video was the comments. So, and usually a video like that will bring a lot of comments. You're always going to have a few of those. Why don't you just buy a bass boat? And it always amazes me the amount of people that watch kayak fishing videos that think you should buy a bass boat. Yeah. But anyway,
you get them too, because I feel like they live on my channel.
Yeah, and it's
camp out.
I want to see these bass boats that are rigged up like some of these kayaks. But the thing that I tried to get, the point I tried to get across to a lot of the people in the comments was, people tend to focus on that $5,000 kayak, and we all know who you're talking about. The Hobie Pro Anglers. Kayaks $5,000 are just too expensive. Well, not everybody needs a pro angler. There are some really good kayaks, and even brand new, there are some really good kayaks for really good prices out there. And quality, what I call quality is, I'm big on the US. I know, not everybody has to be, but I like it because of the service part of it. So they're easier to get parts for. The people that you're talking to, hopefully your local paddle shop. But if you don't have something around, those local, those US companies, those are people that it matters what you think of their kayak, because nobody likes to have customers going on YouTube talking about how crappy this kayak is and how much money they spent and the warranty won't cover something. So that, I always tell people, the kayak industry is evolving. I don't think it's going down, but it's transitioning, and not every kayak out there is 200 pounds and 15 foot long, and you have to buy a trailer for it. But that's what people will focus on, because that's what gets the views. That's the video that their algorithm is pushing to them. And, there's creators out there that are going to create that content because of that. But they're fun. They're fun to look at, though. I mean, I don't, neither one of us use sonar of any kind. I don't use, I've had them before, and there's parts of it I like, but part of it, just for me, I don't film my fishing or anything like that, just because that's my, I don't want to turn that part into a job. I do okay just talking about stuff and hopefully, getting information out there. But I like a simple setup. Now I like a nice setup. I like a nice, I love a nice chair. I love a nice layout. I like nice things. I have a motor that I can put on my kayak. I have a river kayak that, me and Christina, we definitely, she's got the better river kayak, but we're passionate about the river. So we like that little bit of moving water. We like chasing those smallmouth. And the scenery around here is just second to none. But sometimes it's nice to get out there on the lake and hit those largemouth too. So,
heck yeah. Seth, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I want to get into like specifics of.
Oh, we're going
we'll get into that. But yeah, no, that's amazing. And when you said about the group that why don't you just buy a bass boat? I was at an event. It was a Bassmaster event, and someone asked the guy that I was fishing with. I don't know him personally, but he had a good comeback. And he said, because you can't fish kayak tournaments in a bass boat, to the guy. And I was like, that's the best one I've heard. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How you fish a kayak tournament in a bass boat? You can't. That's why I got a kayak.
I've heard Fluke say similar things. So.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. I think it makes sense. I like the
simple.
All right, let's go tactical. All right, so we're gonna rip. So we're gonna. I feel like last time we went like 2 hours for the show. And so I liked it. It was great. It was a great conversation because you bring the juice. Let's go back and forth. Top 5 best in your opinion, top 5 worst, and why. And we'll go kind of back and forth, starting with the 5th best and 5th worst, and we'll make ourselves with the first, and then we'll end out our time with some. We'll talk more about the companies in the middle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to focus on too.
Heck yeah! All right, so take us away, BP.
So I'm going to start with the best, number 5. And I've got Old Town. So Old Town for me, and again, if you would have asked me this 3 years ago, they probably would have been a little higher up. They make great quality. They have great pricing as far, and again, I'm talking about relative to what's out there, brand new. The pedal drive, which, not everybody wants a motor, pedal drives are really nice. Their pedal drive system is one of the most reliable out there, in my opinion. Limited lifetime warranty on the hull, which again, that just covers workman's defects. So if it's manufacturing defects, it'll cover it. If it's misuse or abuse, again, that's not going to cover. So that's definitely, warranties is kind of a different animal there. But great people to work with. I sold Old Towns in my last year there, and they brought. You can kind of make the argument that they brought the motor into the kayak fishing, although people have been hooking up motors to canoes for decades. But
Sure.
Bringing a kayak out of the box with a motor on it was kind of one of those unheard of things at the time. And even though you can make the argument there's better value in some other kayaks that you can add a motor to, some people just like buying that one right out of the box where they just hook a battery up to it and they're on the water. So
yeah, that makes sense. All right, so Old Town. All right,
how do you feel about the marketing team for Old Town? I don't know if it's because I'm in Florida and they have a bunch of sponsored folks down here, but I see Old Town all the time. Like all the anglers that I know down here.
They definitely spend the money on the marketing. I feel like they really hit it hard during COVID, and that really kind of grew them. Now, they've been doing it for longer than anybody, but they have really, in the past probably 5 or 6 years, grown exponentially. And I get the feeling that they're having a hard time maintaining that. My biggest knock on Old Town is they really need some updates. So I love the Sportsman series. I love the Autopilot, but man, the Autopilot only having a 45-pound thrust motor when you can put a Bonafide or a new canoe with the 55-pound motor for like $1,000 less building it. It's time for them to update some things, maybe put a more powerful option on the Autopilot. The Autopilot is a beast. It's a 12-foot and a 13.5-foot version. If you've ever seen that 13.5-foot version in person, or even tried to pick one of those up, it's insane. But a lot of room, so that's what a lot of people like about it. But they're kind of modular, blocky looking, and I think they can kind of modernize some of those designs to take in a lot of the newer accessories without really reinventing the wheel. So, I mean, if Old Town does that, I think that would kind of really cement them in that mid to mid upper tier of kayak right now.
So you said, you mentioned earlier they've dropped. Have they dropped because they got worse, or dropped because people passed them and they haven't?
People passed them. They have not gotten worse, but they, and I know, like, both of our friends, Jay over at Bearded Dad, that's one thing he'll say too, is they really need to update. They've been running that same hull for years, and yes, it's reliable, but there's a lot of other people that have kind of passed them up on the innovation side of it and kept the pricing relatively in that same area too. So there's a better value with some other stuff as well.
Yeah. Got a comment here.
I'm going to throw in real quick. The other thing that we noticed with Old Town, they are really good at their kayaks being good at one thing. So if it's motorized, that's what it's good at. If it's paddle, getting it motorized, not so great.
Okay. Yeah, you can do it, but yeah, and she's absolutely right. So the motor, they got the Autopilot, the pedal drive, they got the PDL series. They got some paddle kayaks with the big water, and the Sportsman, they make the paddle versions of those, which they're okay. But your value in the PDL is really where it's at on that.
Okay. Question. I got a comment in from Ben Bellaro. It says, word on the street, they're releasing a new lineup that'll be easy to rig, and they're releasing the PDL 12 and an EPDL version this year. Is that going to come out in ICAST? What's going to happen there? Any word on the street that you're hearing?
Not sure on them at ICAST. If they're going to do something, they'll probably do it at ICAST. I'm just not a big fan of the EPDL. I feel like they really made that to cater to the offshore angler, and you're talking about a lot of money in that, and a lot of R&D, research and development, and it just didn't take on very well, because And I'm not saying they should ignore the offshore angler. I'm not saying that at all, but a majority of your customers are going to be inshore fishermen. And when you go out there to the lake and open water, you're not seeing a whole lot of people wanting to, like, I wish my pedal drive was like an e-bike. You know, you got some nice features on there. I wish they wouldn't have done it on the big water series. They really should have started it with the Sportsman lineup. But when you're talking about putting that system on a Sportsman, you're looking at about a $3,500 kayak. And I don't know that people are really just flocking for that model.
Yeah, we'll see. New Hampshire fishing gal, also one of my teammates this past year. That PDL with the electric assist was a waste. So tell us how you really feel there. So. All right, let's keep this thing moving.
That's what I really hope Old Town does, is listen to the people, because it's just, you're talking about a $6,000 pedal drive. It's not a motor. It's an assisted motor, but it's not what people think it is, and it's a huge price tag.
Yeah. Well, we have 113 people live right now, so if you have not done so, please hit the like button. We'll get this thing shooting through the moon when it comes to the replays. All right, let's move on. That was number 5 on best. Let's go to the worst of the worst now and work our way up.
You want me to start on that?
I'm assuming you're running the whole show tonight.
This is going to surprise some people, and this comes from a place of love because I own one. Number 5 worst right now in 2025 is Jackson Kayak.
Oh, they've been like taking the dive for a few years. I feel like we give them an uppercut or a kick to the every time we have a show.
Yeah. Jackson Kayak. Man, my favorite kayak and my favorite river kayak is a Jackson Kayak. I've got one. It's a Jackson Tripper. It's a great kayak. I bought it because I was blessed to work for a retailer, so I did not pay full MSRP on that. MSRP on that kayak right now is about $1,500, and I would not buy that kayak at that price.
Okay.
But I feel like Jackson Kayak has the same disease that a lot of other companies have, is they've kind of abandoned that lower tiered price point. And right now, their cheapest paddle kayak is the Bite. And the Bite is probably the bread and butter of that fishing kayak lineup. It's $9.99. It's a great kayak. It's one of the best values out there. But when you go above that, you're looking at the U-Pick at it got up to like $1,600. And 2 or 3 years ago, it was $12.99 at a great value. Their pedal drives, they've got so many pedal drive models that it's almost, you get pedal drive fatigue from it. Now, one thing that Jackson has done, and they've done this in the past, they've walked back the pricing considerably on their pedal drive units. So my biggest, last year they came out and they were going to unveil these 2 brand new fishing kayaks, and they came out with a reboot of the Big Rig and the Cruise FD, which FD is flex drive.
Can we talk about this real quick? Because I'm literally on their website. The NAR right now is reduced. Yeah, it's reduced by $1,000. The 2 that he's talking about, which is the Bite FD and the Big Rig FD, well, not the Bite FD, but the Big Rig FD, is normally $39.99. On their website is currently $26.75. That kind of tells you a lot about what's going on with those kayaks. Yeah.
I've been hearing things around Hobie being like half off. Some people are like writing me like, should I get this? There's a Hobie, which they've been notoriously in the past known for not giving sale at all. All right. Well, sorry. Oh, sorry.
I'll go hard on that. Yeah.
All right.
Didn't Jackson have like a really high end model that they were going to release that was like $10,000 or $15,000 or something, made of like special material?
Oh, yeah, that wasn't through Jackson. Eric Jackson, the guy who one of the co-founders of Jackson Kayak, he was kind of booted, and he started his own company making carbon fiber whitewater and a fishing kayak. And Eric's been a really big into the kayak fishing also, but he does it from a carbon fiber kayak. That kayak cost 11,999. It's a $12,000 kayak.
Well,
it's
because he beat us at the Knucklehead this year in it.
Probably weighs like 20 pounds too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's crazy.
It's not what I would call a big dude fishing kayak by any means. Like the chair is carbon fiber, the chair swivels, but we actually had to outlaw customers sitting in it, because when they'd sit in it, the seat pan you'd hear some cracking in it. I'm like,
Oops.
Wow.
Yeah. And now, if you're a whitewater enthusiast and you got the coin, that's a different story. Their whitewater kayaks are really, really good. But the fishing kayak, it's just more of a kayak he made for himself, really, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Good news.
He designs his stuff around him.
Bass Raft, it's down to 8,000 now. So if 11,000 was a little outside of your price range, it's down to 8. That's good.
Yeah.
2 comments here. We'll keep it moving.
That's a bargain.
Yeah, a bargain, 100%. So PA Dan said, "This is awesome. Getting a P127 soon." That's what I'm talking about. Welcome to the dark side, my friend. My favorite kayak. I've been running it for years. Southwest Indiana Outdoors. Going to have him on the show in the future, in like a month from now. I'm excited about that. He says, "No experience here, but seen multiple horror stories of Jackson customer service over the last couple of years," which is probably going to be a common theme as we go from worst to best, right?
Yeah. That has not been my experience, but I don't know right now, because I had with warranties. Now, the company I worked for, Ozark Mountain Trading Company, kind of started the same time that Jackson did, and they both kind of grew together. There for the longest time, we were, I would say, the number one Jackson retailer in the country. And then there toward the end, I think we were kind of going back and forth with Tulsa Kayak, out of Oklahoma there. But with Jackson, I could pick up a phone, I can call my guy, and it was taken care of. Sometimes even when it shouldn't have been taken care of, it was taken care of. That has changed a little bit, and that guy that run warranties is no longer running warranties. Jackson is also said Jackson also has said goodbye to a lot of their pro staff guys, and a lot of their good pro staff guys. A lot of their good people are no longer with Jackson. So Jackson's definitely in a transition. Now, I want to say I put them on my 5th worst. Their problem is fixable. They can easily come out of this. Whether they do or not, they don't need to make an R. They don't need to do that again. That was the biggest miss in the entire kayak industry a couple of years ago. The people I talked to that helped design that kayak that's out now is nothing like what they designed. And the problems with the weight capacity, and then you got Fishing with Gramps almost dying and making a video out of it, and like it was just not a good time for them to release a brand new kayak like that. And they need to quit chasing Hobie, and they need to start doing what they did best, giving really good middle price range kayaks that paddle really well, perform really well, and comfortable, because they've got a great seat, great stability, and then good performance. So
all right, let's keep this moving. But before that, Justin Frame just picked up a P127 last week. Come on, that's the second one.
He's got the
That's
button
what I'm talking
ready.
about. I do. I got the hype button. If you guys wonder what that was.
Let me ask. So the two people that talked about the P127, what did they pay for it? If they don't mind sharing that.
All right. As long as their wife's not listening in.
Oh, well, yeah. So
males and females over there.
I think the P127 is a great kayak. It was just, I think it was $3,100 brand new when it first came out.
Brand new, yeah.
And a lot of people that are buying them are getting them at a pretty good deal, because they didn't sell really well, which surprised me, because before that came out, when someone was looking at like the SS127 or like other bona fide kayaks, when that removable gear pod that they have, they were saying, "Is that where your pedal drive goes?" Like, no, they don't make a pedal drive. When they finally did that, I'm thinking, oh, this thing's going to sell like crazy. And it was like it was stuck in the mud the entire time. And I think that was probably because of that price point. And then a lot of people just didn't want, they didn't take one out, or because it actually performs really well.
It does.
I was
freaking awesome.
Yeah, I was a
And
big
by the
fan.
way, really quick, Southwest India and doors. Well, let me throw this out there. I picked up a P127 as well. Come on, a couple of weeks ago.
Jeez.
I know we're the flotilla here.
Now people are just going to say that for the hype button now.
No, these are all true. 1,000% true.
You're like Oprah. You're like Oprah giving out the cars. Like, you get a P127. You get
so many. There's gonna be so many out there where it's gonna be like where you see like one Corvette go down. There's like 30 other Corvettes. It's just gonna be a lake. P127.
It's just gonna be kayak trailers just as far as the eye can see with the P127.
We did the video. The criminally underrated fishing kayaks. That was mine. So I'm saying I'm sticking to that. Justin frames the 2,800 out the door.
Okay, see that's important. That's important. So yeah, get a good deal on it, which they can be had out there now.
Yep. Jeff Robinson says, I want to need a P127. Dave Rowley, I saw a P127 once. You saw one. That counts. You're not getting the hype button.
Yeah, we need to see the receipt for the hype button.
I got mine for $2,100. And it was only used once on Marketplace. However, I've bought both of my kayaks in the middle of winter. So they're sitting in people's garages in the way. The wife or the husband's like, I need to park my garage because I don't like scraping ice off my car up around here. So, all right, let's keep it moving. We got 2 done out of 10. So we got to move. Pick this up. All right, fourth on the best.
Crescent Kayak.
Okay.
Ooh. Crescent. So this kind of goes with my theme of they make Crescent Kayaks, in my opinion, is not the best what I call big guy kayak, and that's what a lot of people I feel like that are getting into fishing they want that stability, they want that really, really high weight capacity and all that. Crescent Kayaks, if you're interested in just getting out and paddling, you don't care about the motors, you don't care about the pedal drives. They're phenomenal. Me and Christina did the video where we compared the Crescent Shoaly with the Bonafide RVR 119, and we both preferred the paddle performance of the Shoaly. We ultimately liked everything else more on the RVR personally, but the performance of it can feel a little bit tippy if you're a taller or heavier paddler, but it turned on a dime. It paddled phenomenally. They've got the new one out, the Primo, which is a budget-friendly performance kayak. So I think they do, all these bigger companies I say that have abandoned that middle to lower price point, they are basically giving those customers to big box stores. And I'm talking about, like your Lifetimes and your Pelicans and, your Alibaba kayaks, like, your Vibes and your Feel Frees. That's what people are buying because they can't buy a Jackson for those prices. They can't buy a Hobie for that price. Big Adventures, Bonafide, they got the RS 117, which is around that $9.99 price point and a very good value. But there's not, they're kind of moving upward, and what's happening is 75% of your market is in that probably $600 to $1,300, and those people are getting grabbed up by all of these companies that are selling them for pennies on the dollar, and they're making a killing because of that, because
volume,
the quality competition just left. They just stopped. So
it's wild. Every time I get the question on people write me all the time. I just got this like 2 days ago. Hey, I'm thinking about getting into it. They always give me their weight and height. I weigh, 285. I'm 6'1". What's the best kayak for me? And my next question, like, what's your budget? And it always lands between $800 and $1,200 every single freaking time. And so, all right, that changes the game. By the way, we're at 130 people live right now. So this is wild. This is a hot show. If you have not yet done so, please hit that like button. Also, if you guys are wondering who Seth Taylor is and you missed the announcement at the beginning of the podcast, that was a big announcement for tonight, which is he is now my new co-host for the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. Liz down in Florida, And so we're going to round this podcast out with
no snow.
fishing from around the country.
Oh.
No, I hate you.
No snow. We got snow. Not here in my place. I'm in South Florida, but Florida got snow recently. Hey, I have a question.
So did Louisiana did too.
Yeah. I have a question on the Crescent. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the last year's Bassmaster Classic Kayak Division, Drew Gregory won that event on a Shoalie, which he was able to go like way up a river and draft. Like the draft, I guess, is real small on it.
Yeah.
So he was able to hit places that other folks weren't able to get just because of the draft is so low. Is that accurate? Is that what you've found with those? Is that
a great river kayak is going to do that. So, and Drew's in the Shoalie because Drew helped design the Shoalie. And he also did that with Jackson Kayak in the past with a lot of people that have been like into kayak fishing for a while know about the Jackson Coosa, the original Coosa, not the Coosa HD or the Coosa X, but the original Coosa was a great river kayak. It was 65 pounds or 63 pounds. So it was lightweight, and it had some flaws, had some design flaws with, where the seat, and the Shoalie kind of has a little bit of that, but not as bad as the Coosa did, where you got some hole cracking where the points of the seat kind of come down on it. But, he also didn't use sonar. He didn't use any electronics. And I think they did that Shoalie Palooza, or, that river.
Oh no, that was a different one. They had one on Susquehanna.
Yeah. But he's been really big in that river fishing as well. But because if you're fishing on big open water and you're not familiar with it, what are you going to do? What are you looking for? You're looking for points, but you're also looking to see where creeks and rivers go into it. And with a kayak like that, like he was saying, you can go up into that creek. A lot of times that's where those fish are going, or some of them just stay there year long. But I remember there was a local tournament around here, and I'll keep this short. I know we got a list here, but there was a guy that was coming down. They were having a big kayak fishing tournament, and he asked where to go. I was like, okay, you're on this lake. Go to this creek. This creek goes right into it. You can actually launch right there. It's a public launch area. And he caught like a 22-inch largemouth bass, one big bass, won the tournament. But he caught it in that creek. He just kind of paddled up that creek a little bit. Again, it's legal. It's the same water, but that's where it's at.
Larry Thornton says my buddy has a motorized Shoalie and he's going like 8 miles an hour.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to see 8 miles per hour.
I'm telling you, when we did the comparison video, I loved the RVR, but I'm telling you, when I started in the Shoalie and then went to the RVR, I felt like I was dragging. The Shoalie's just like, it's going, man.
Cruising.
Yeah, it didn't. The one thing about the Shoalie with most of the beginners, they want more stability. I feel like a lot of people just kind of push performance to the side. The Shoalie, you do get a really, really great performance. You don't get as much what I call secondary stability. And that's really important when you're talking about moving water, because, as soon as you tip a little bit, you don't get that initial, that secondary resistance. It's going to go. And, even the guy that owns it says, I was
going to say, go watch some Alex Rudd videos.
Alex Rudd is tipped over at John, at Creek Fishing Adventures, John over there. He's tipped over his Shoalie a few times, and John has done that too. It's, if you don't mind getting wet, it's not a big deal. It's not like it's an unstable kayak. It's just not as forgiving for like that beginner paddler is all.
I like it. All right, let's keep this party rocking and rolling. Let's head back over to fourth worst.
Ascend.
Bass Pro.
So
for those of you with Bass Pro shops around you.
Yeah. And the corporate office is located. Corporate office is not far from us. So they're all over the place. Everybody's got a friend that works at Bass Pro, and they got like that 40% off deal from them. That was the one kayak. So we did trade-ins at the shop I worked at. And that was probably the most traded in kayak of any of them by far. So looking at the Ascend, and I'm not saying that people don't have the Ascend and don't enjoy it, but as long as you keep your expectations within reason, it's not terrible, but their platform, it looks stable because it's flat and it's wide, and it's not. And it's the biggest sales pitch I would have to hull design matters. So the bottom of your boat, the way it's designed, that matters. You can tell by looking at the bottom of one whether it's going to be a performance or whether it's going to be overly stable. Ascend does none of those things. And they were the one exception to when I always talk about US made roto molded kayaks. Well, Ascend is both of those things, but it's literally a cookie cutter approach to it. So, and it's Bass Pro. It's Tracker Plastics technically, but Bass Pro owns Tracker. So you're just taking a cookie cutter, you're getting that simple hull, they're throwing a seat on it. All the hardware they use on the kayak will rust and corrode, which is insane to me.
Oh, yeah, right. Where's your stainless steel? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the seat connectors always break because it's metal and plastic. The pad eyes that they have on the front will always rust. Parts of the seat will rust. The hinges will rust. And I've just seen some crazy setups out there, and they're bad to warp and flex. Which leads to cracking because they're not a high density plastic either. So
they're also really heavy, as Southwest Indiana Outdoors pointed out.
Yeah, they sell like 14-foot kayaks. I mean, those things are massive. We got a bunch of comments over here. Southwest Indiana Outdoors says agreed on Ascend. Have some friends that lots of issues. Sean Johnson, I started in an Ascend 12T.
Yeah,
a little throw emoji next to that for those of you who are listening in. Also really heavy.
Again, I'm not saying that there's people out there that don't enjoy them or haven't had good experiences with them, but those people were probably not buying that kayak thinking they were getting a top of the line. If it's just something, if you're going around some maybe a larger pond or something, it's not something I would go out on open water where you got boats zipping around. Like you're going to get in some trouble there. But it's a simple kayak, but it's cheap. So it's the perfect entry level kayak because the amount of investment, if you're at Bass Pro and you go there to buy a couple of lures, you see this kayak and it's $300 or $400, and then they've got it on sale, certain times a year. You look at, you're looking at each other and like, yeah, why not? If I don't like it, I can just get rid of it or give it to somebody or keep it for a buddy boat. And that's what a lot of them turn into is their buddy boats. I got a friend that wants to go and they don't have a kayak. Yeah, I got this one over here. It's got a frame seat on it. So
nice. Bucktail over here says former Ascend fanboy. Had the H12 and 12T. I thought they were the bomb, and then I learned how much better a kayak can be. They worked, but you can get way better for the money. He's like, the hull of my 12T warped.
Yeah, and that's a key point, though, too. A lot of times, if you've ever paddled, pedaled, or powered any of what I would call that mid to upper level kayak, it's different. Like I said, that design matters, whether you're paddling or any of the above. And it was kind of the argument I make on the motors. So motors is kind of where the innovation is going to be. Your hull design matters on your motor. If you're fearing paddling something, sticking a motor on it, that motor is going to be fighting that same battle that your body is fighting. And, if you got a motor that's capable of 9 miles an hour, a really terrible kayak design, you're going to get about 3. It just
ocean water. Folks,
yeah. There's pedal drives that'll go faster than that. So it's just where you put your money matters. Build, get that great foundation before you start adding motors and all kinds of crazy stuff to it.
I actually know a kayak that the pedal drive that'll go faster than 3 miles an hour. You guys want to guess which one that is? Want to break out my hype button again?
The P127.
There we go. There we go.
I have a question on the list here. So that is our 4th worst.
Yep.
Okay, so when we get to number 1 on the worst category, that is the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I got this right. I put my list backwards here.
Let's volley back to the best.
So where are we at? Third.
Yeah. I mean, the comment section
third
is still
and
ripping on Ascends right now, but yeah, we can move over to.
Yeah,
we can move over to
third. Confluence. So Confluence, and again, I'm not crazy about all their brands, but Perception, Wilderness Systems. They also, they are owned by Pelican. but Perception and Wilderness was a really high quality brand back in, like, I like to call it like the Chad Hoover days, back when he was out there with Wilderness System. Yeah. And, but you can make it. And again, they're kind of the exception where innovation is just lacking, but they make such a good quality. I always tell people the best beginner kayak, if you're just wanting to get into it, is a Perception. It's, again, their rotomolding process is almost second to none. And they're basically what they've done. They made one of the highest selling kayaks out there in the Wilderness Systems Tarpon series.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when that Tarpon series evolved, they kept the same hull design and made it into the Pescador series. So, instead of, because again, those molds cost a lot of money. Those ovens cost a lot of money. Well, those get paid for eventually. Why wouldn't you just keep something that works, drop the price on it a little bit, and get that entry level, paddler into something really good? They came out with the Pescador Pro series, where they're putting a frame seat, a fishing version of that Pescador. That's a great kayak. Christina's paddled one on Buffalo National River here. They make 10 and 12 foot sizes, which are considerably different performance wise. I mean, they really, they're solid. I wouldn't consider them top tier, but they came at the only new kayak they've came out with that really even speak of is this Tactical Pro that you keep hearing about from ICAST last year. I don't know how that's going to work. Yeah. And it's, when Motor Guide made that announcement, I was kind of wondering how that was going to work with that Wilderness Systems kayak. But honestly, as long as the new motor coming out is going to fit the same mounting, which I'm sure it will, it's going to be fine. But it's the Tactical Pro is basically a Recon 120 with motor options on it and some different layout. But still, they're still making kayaks for that middle tier price point, but giving you a good quality too.
There you go. My question is, the Tactical Pro, they launched it at ICAST last July. Here we are, January 28th, and they're just like taking orders for it. Meanwhile, Bonafide, I was fishing at the end of last season with a buddy in an XTR. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. And I was told from some of the Confluence that March is going to be when you really start to see them. And I'm sitting there thinking, but not saying there's not a couple of them out there, but March is when you're going to really start to see them. Well, you're talking about, that's a little late to the game for 25. You got people that are already wanting, they're already tournament fishing, and that's what that kayak is for. That kayak is for competitive fishing, or just, if you got the cash and you want something nice, for not a huge price tag, that's a good one. But March, you're getting into bass spawn, and that's going to be a little late in the game to be hunting one down. And is that a kayak that's really worth just driving hundreds and hundreds of miles to get to the one dealer that might have got one in? So, I think they might have missed the boat a little bit on there, but they're definitely late to the game, but it's at least they're trying. I guess I could say that. But
yeah, I thought it was like a lot. Like the XTR and Tactical were boosted at the same time, only for one to be in everyone's hands, the other one's still like doing orders on, and so it's just like, okay,
yeah. And my favorite thing about the Tactical Pro, at ICAST was it technically won Best of Show, but the XTR wasn't in the drawing.
No,
so it was kind of tainted a little bit there because it's Best in Show.
A little bit. Yeah. The reason the
XTR wasn't even on the list. So.
No, because they were trying to actually do an actual launch, and once you let everybody and their mom know at the show it's going to be a part of it, it gets leaked, and then you lose out on that grand reveal. All right, let's keep moving. Let's head over to number 3 on worst.
No surprise here, and honestly, you can put it higher up on the list, but Lifetime. Now these are
you're gonna upset some people in the comment section right now. I know you're going.
Now Now, full disclosure, that the kayak that we were wanting to buy at during COVID was a Lifetime Tamarack Pro. So again, a lot of respect for that kayak, but when people are buying Lifetimes, that's not typically the one they're looking at. It's a popular one, but these are the ones that are shipped on pallets or bundles on a truck. You see them at the grocery store, you see them at the farm supply store, and I had a picture that went crazy there that I put out where it was me and Christina. We were at the farm supply store, and there was a guy. You could take a rope and wrap two of me together, and this guy was bigger than me. And he was standing next to this Lifetime kayak, and the person at the farm supply store gave him a paddle that was about a child-sized paddle, it was about a 200-centimeter paddle. And I looked at her, I was like, he's going to die. Like, he can't fit in that kayak. And he's not going to be able to move it with that. And he's going to think that's how kayaks are. That's how, when you buy a kayak, that's what you're getting. And that was my only gripe about that, was like, okay, the person selling that to him knew nothing about a kayak. It's sitting next to the deer blinds. And I'm like, okay, the guy goes, you got a paddle? I was like, yeah, we got one over there. Here, you can just take this one. And I was looking at that. I was like, it was like a 200 or 200 and below. And I'm like, that's what we sold the kids kayaks with. And this guy, it was easily 280. The weight capacity on that kayak was about 275, I believe. And I'm like, yeah, that guy is, and we go outside and they got them, they got matching kayaks strapped to these Jeeps that are all rigged up. I'm like, he spent more on his bumper and winch than he did both of those kayaks put together. So, but you don't know what you don't know.
I'll say that's the most self-control I've ever seen.
I'm going to reshare that photo. So.
I don't think I've seen it, which is a surprise.
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't. I'm not going to go in someone else's business and solicit for somebody else or say, "Hey, don't buy that." But I'm like, I'm seeing this guy and I'm like, I don't know. I probably should have said something, but chances are he's not going down. He wasn't doing any whitewater rafting or anything. But
I was also standing next to him, going, "Please don't say anything right now."
Just let it go.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
just let it go.
Yeah, just like. He's made his purchase. He's happy with it. If he's happy, I'm happy. So,
a couple of comments about those who own them. Larry Thornton caught some nice fish out of a Lifetime, but can't sit in it over an hour. Yep. Well, and then I get, my Lifetime.
That's the thing.
It's comfy as hell, but I wish I had a swivel seat. So it's personal preference here.
So the biggest thing with me with those kayaks is people will buy those with the intent on modifying it past its design. So there's a mod out there you can do on them where you can put a frame seat on it. And I'm watching people post pictures of these things. I'm like, that kayak was barely meant to be stable enough to sit down on it. You're raising yourself up 6 inches and it's more comfortable, but two things are going to happen. That plastic is going to warp and crack underneath it, causing a leak and a dangerous situation, or it's going to tip over and all of you and your gear is just going to fall into the lake or a river. So, we have literally seen those things wrapped around trees in the local rivers here. And it's not that they're terrible so much as that there's no marketing and no knowledge behind them. People selling them don't know anything about them. So they're designed to be close to shore and they're designed for really small bodies of water like ponds. It's not meant to go down class 1s and 2s. Not saying you can't, but it's not designed for that, and it's not designed to be at big open water. But you got $200 or $300, you can grab one, throw it in the truck, and head out there. So that's
And when you get them for that price point, you're not getting anybody who knows what they're talking about selling. To your point, right? You're just grabbing them off the shelf.
Exactly.
And going,
and
it's risky if you don't.
Yeah, that person was selling women's leggings the day before. So, it's they literally. It's like to them, it's a kayak. It floats.
Yep.
And I've had that same conversation with people on weight capacities where the guy said, I said, well, how much do you weigh? And they said, well, 275. Like, okay, that kayak's weight capacity is 275 pounds. I say, okay, it'll float then. I'm like, it'll float. It's not going to float much. But,
and if you add anything to it, you're done.
Cannot bring a fishing rod.
Yeah,
you're a
done.
minimalist.
You're
good.
done.
So this is here's a modification I think you all might like, coming from Mr. Bluestone. I thought of Lifetime kayaks are more for those beer coolers.
Yes.
There you go.
Wow.
There you go. Just go ahead and throw the cooler
That's what
in
those
there.
those little 6-foot kid kayaks are for. You can tether one to the back and have that floating cooler on it. Yeah.
There you go.
That's using your noodle right there.
Yeah, no, right? Steven Sturgeon brings it back. It seems like sales knowledge and integrity is a huge part of whether a kayak is on the naughty or nice list. Thoughts on that?
Your knowledge and integrity is going to get the right person in the right kayak. So, when I worked at the store, and Christina can speak to this, and she's done it too, is when somebody comes in, we're not trying to push a Hobie on them. We're not trying to push the most expensive thing on them. I've never heard of a paddle shop doing that. I'm not saying it's never happened, but because if you're getting the wrong kayak, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to think all kayaks suck, and you're not going to want to get into it again. And if you get the right one, it opens up such a world of possibility. Then that's when you start going too far into it. You're buying electronics, you're buying, $200 swim baits, and we've all done that, but it's still, it's
stop talking about Seth. He's right here.
Yeah, right.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Easy.
But having that right craft opens that world up, because you don't have to worry about that anymore. And it needs change. So I always tell people when they're looking at a kayak, like, don't think about today. Think about what you think you might want to do 2 or 3 years down the road. It doesn't mean go buy a motor and forward-facing sonar and all the Yak Attack accessories. It just means if you think you might want to do that, there's a lot of great paddle kayaks that have the ability to do that. You don't have to buy the Autopilot or the Hobie Pro Angler to have a motor on it. You can get a Bixby motor, you can get the Newport or the the Torpedo. Like, there's some options out there. But yeah, I'm
going to interrupt him real quick.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah.
Good.
One of the things that he touched on, and somebody talking about it, it's the knowledge. It's the knowledge, but it's also understanding what the person wants. The first kayak I ever sold was a Perception Tribe. And it was because this woman came in, she wanted to just recreational float. She wanted something that was not a Lifetime. She wanted something that was a little stronger in terms of the plastic. For us, because it wasn't commission-based, whatever we were doing was not commission-based, we were literally trying to get you in the right kayak. Whatever that price point is, we're looking at what's your price point, what are you doing? That's the other big question is, are you
what kind of water?
Lakes? That's the big thing is, so knowing that, I think I can see this when I'm looking at his list. I'm going, I can see why you're saying these things, because he put Confluence on there. Confluence isn't a massively expensive brand, but it's good for the money.
Can I just make
very good for the money?
A really, really important statement. It might be the best statement of the night. MT over in the comment section. He's like, I just got the Bonafide P127. Come on. Number 5.
Can I recap where we're at? Darren?
Man.
Yeah.
Recap the list. So the top 5, number 5 so far, Old Town, number 4, Crescent, number 3, Confluence, which is Perception, Wilderness System, and a few others, right? In there. So that's the top 5, 4, 3 so far. The bottom 5, the fifth worst so far is Jackson Kayaks. Kind of surprising to me. Number 4, Ascend.
Yeah, that hurts a little bit.
Yeah, and 3, Lifetime. So we're at the second worst. Yeah, the second worst is where we're at, Darren.
Seth is like, let me get Darren back on track here. He keeps talking about the P.
Yeah, enough of this.
No, I appreciate it.
7 siren, man.
Solid.
So
solid co-host.
The second worst kayak company, Hobie.
That's mine.
Hobie
Unreal.
Second, they just lost their first place just now, folks. If you wonder when, it was right this moment.
Yeah,
Can
and
we
again,
preface this by saying that we have one in the garage?
Seth runs a Hobie.
yes, but
Well, I've got an old Hobie.
Which Hobie do you have?
The link. Oh,
The 12. I have the 12.
There you go.
Yeah, the Pro Angler 12.
Okay. Is it the 360?
No. Mm-mm.
good deal.
Nope. Nope. Not the 360. Just the regular. And then I threw a trolling motor on that week. For the first time, which is a whole new world for me.
Yes. So with Hobie and the biggest thing with Hobie is it's not so much their product, but I'm not a big fan of the 360 drive for obvious reasons. And I'm definitely not a fan of the decisions they've made just in the last 2 years. Working for a retailer, and again, take what I say with a grain of salt. Those of you that are looking at Hobie or looking for Hobie, they've done a lot of things in the last couple of years. So one, they've gone big box. You can buy the Hobie Pro Angler at Bass Pro on their website, and you can also buy them at Academy, at Dick's, at Shields, and none of those locations will do your service work.
Right.
So you can buy it there, but to get that service work done, you have to go to a paddle shop that is authorized to do that service work. Those paddle shops are starting to jump from the Hobie train. So that's obviously not going to make them happy when someone can go to a Bass Pro shop or an Academy and buy this kayak, but you have to fix it for them. So that you're going to find less and less paddle shops carrying Hobie. We were one of them. We were on our way out there. Because again, working on them, specifically the 360 drive, my last day at OMTC, I was replacing a clutch and belt assembly. I was there till 9 p.m. doing this.
Whoa.
And, it's not a fun job. It's, it's all in the day's work. Obviously, you're working on kayaks, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but parts availability is another thing. So this is something that really hurt them during COVID. So we were getting shipments of just the hulls, the seats and the drives. A lot of those parts came from overseas. So what they were having is when they had the supply ship problem there, we couldn't get parts from Hobie. So somebody that buys a $5,000 Hobie 360 14-footer, say something goes wrong, you're looking at 3 to 6 months before that part's even going to be available. That, you talk about putting some bad taste in people's mouth in the last 5 years, that really did it. You see a lot of, you saw the aggressively average angler guys, Jeff and Paul, they were huge pro angler guys. They both have jumped that. And they actually made a video that I actually sent to the owners of OMTC when I was working there. I was like, you guys need to watch this, because they were doing like a live stream like we're doing here. They got like 6,000 views in the first hour. Just people gobble up that Hobie content. But, when you're talking about I think Jeff's drive busted like 3 times in the warranty period. And Paul's busted after the warranty had run out. So he actually had to buy the drive before he could sell it so he can move on. So
painful.
Yeah. And it's, when you're talking about, brand loyalty with Hobie is something else. But when you're the most expensive pedal drive kayak on the market by far, is also the least reliable. And now then the last few years, they started deck cracking. The amount of warranty holes I replaced in the last probably 2 years that I worked at OMTC, it was insane. Now they will stand behind it, but they were also asking a lot of questions. They were also, making us kind of run through the hoops for the customer. And I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, if somebody wasn't contacting us, they're contacting Hobie directly. Hobie's doing that to the customer, and it's just a bad look. And for Hobie to get out, they also moved their manufacturing to Mexico. So, they're no longer US made, which you kind of wonder how the tariff situation is going to affect them. there's just a lot of uncertainty. They've been for sale for a few years. They've been owned by private groups since the 80s, so that's nothing new. But whoever takes them on is obviously, they're going to need to come in there and say, okay, they're going to need to replace parts of everybody that's been wronged by them. They're going to need, they have a huge warranty liability, and nobody's going to want to give asking price for Hobie. So I'm really curious to see what becomes of Hobie in the next couple of years, because it's been crazy, just kind of watching that unfold.
Well, they really messed up the ruling on that one fish in the Hobie BOS recently. That rubbed me the wrong way. that got me, man.
Yeah, and in the Hobie, the Hobie BOS series, there's just a lot of things going on that it's like they've taken so many body shots. They're starting to get a little weary now.
I love my Hobie. Like, I absolutely love it. But I also haven't been in all the other kayaks that are on the top 5. So who knows? I'd probably love those too. But one thing I love about the Hobie is I'm able to just boat flip fish into it and just stays in my kayak. Boat flip them over the gunnel. They don't bounce out. I just love that about kayak fishing, because I used to be worried about them jumping all over the place, flipping off the board. That's one of my little things I didn't expect to like as much, is having this inside of the kayak where the fish just don't really get out. Once they're in, I pretty much have that for the most part.
It's a little bit more of that true boat design. And the great thing about the Pro Angler, the one thing that they did really well with the Pro Angler and a lot of their other kayaks, they're performance hulls. They are built for speed. They're heavy, but those little flippers can move that hull tremendously. And there's a lot of, there's a couple of content creators out there that love to crap on them just to crap on them for views. That's not what I'm doing here, but just, from a customer service standpoint, again, we're kind of going back to that. But when you're talking about a premium price, I mean, they're easily the most expensive product on the entire list. But you expect, your return on investment is no longer there. So the marketplace is flooded with Hobies. We own a Hobie. She fishes out of the Hobie Lynx. She loves it, and I love it too. The year before, I was in a Pro Angler 14, but I stayed with a 180 drive. So the 180 drive, you could still get parts for. It's just as efficient. And I'm not saying it's not out there, but I personally have never had a need to pedal sideways or diagonally. I don't have a problem pulling the tab and going in reverse. But when people think of Hobie, when they think of Hobie, they don't think of the 180 drive. They only think about the 360 drive and the problem. So Hobie's got some stuff. If I owned Hobie, I would scrap the 360 today. I wouldn't even think about it. I would take care of everybody that has ever had problems with it within warranty. There, obviously, not a 5 or 6 year old drive, but you got to take care of those customers, because those customers bought a really expensive kayak from you, and it's tough. Now, I still think that the Hobie Outback is probably one of the best pedal drive kayaks out there. Again, same drive, a little bit of a smaller package, not so much a trailering kayak, but you can do rivers, you can do lakes on that. Very, very good kayak, but just the company as a whole is just not going in the direction that would give me a lot of confidence right now. I hope that changes, because in my opinion, I think the industry needs a Hobie, but they have been at the top for so long, and there was a huge gap between 1 and 2. And I mean huge. Some people may disagree on the level of that, but Hobie was here, and then everybody else was just fighting for number 2. Nobody was going after Hobie because they were so far ahead of everybody. Now that's a little different. Now I actually think that as far as innovation and performance, they have been passed, but Hobie is still what people aspire to because of years and years of people talking about how great they are, how many features, because it's a feature-rich kayak. Drop-down skeg, flip-down rudder, motorization capabilities, huge front hatch, and just like you said, the room, the H-rail system, everything. There's some stuff that's really good about it. But when people lose the confidence in the hull, not
Right.
cracking, and the
Kind of a problem.
drive itself not blowing to pieces. It's kind of tough.
And you just dethroned them. And so they were first until you said they were now in second. I have a feeling I know who first is. This is going to be good. I do want to we got 3 more. And I quickly realized now that we're an hour and 16 minutes in this bad boy, there's not a chance we're talking about the mid-level companies. We're going to do another show.
Yeah.
I'll get you guys all lined back up. There is a question. And thank you, Hank. This one came with $10. Appreciate that. By the way, you can buy your question onto the show. I am for sale when it comes to this. 100%.
Yeah, no shame.
Yeah, no shame. $10 definitely gets the show stopped and your question answered. He says, I'm about to buy a Vibe Shearwater with a Hobie 180 drive, Bending Branches paddle, Snipe Air Industries rudder, and anchor. Never heard of them before. For $1,500. It will be my first kayak. Is it worth it?
With the Hobie drive in it, I've heard of that a little bit, but $1,500 is a lot for a Shearwater. The Shearwater, I've been in one, and again, just for what I use it just wasn't the kayak for me. I've heard a lot of people say they weren't the most stable kayaks in the world. I'd probably agree with that. If you're looking for stability and just the ability to carry a lot of gear, that's one thing. If you're just looking for something simple to move around water on, it's going to be fine. But for me, $1,500 can buy a lot on the used market. And you're already looking at secondhand. So I'd be hard to say. I would be hard to say just pull the trigger on that. But if it's in your budget and it fits what you're wanting to do,
And is that Bending Branches paddle one of those $1,000 paddles that they sell, or is it just $100?
Yeah, it's just is that a whisper paddle, or is that one of those? Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you, Hank. Appreciate you. All right. Let's go. Well, there's been like 50 comments since then. We're in the top 3. So let's head over to the second worst.
No, we already did that.
Oh, that was, second worst was Hobie.
That's my kayak. Thank you.
Sorry. Second, my bad. Second best is where we're at, right? Are we in second best?
Yeah,
It's second best.
So number 2 on best is New Canoe. So New Canoe, you can make the argument that New Canoe is kind of 1B. But New Canoe is, again, they're one of those brands that has gotten a cult-like following from customers, and not just people that own them. There's people that they're all about New Canoe before even buying it. The pro staff ones, the pro staff from New Canoe that I've run into are definitely good quality people. I've kind of had my own issues with pro staffs with different companies that they're in it for the free boat, and they're just, they'll hijack any Facebook group that you can think of. But New Canoe, Blake was actually our first guest on our live stream.
Okay.
Just great people all around. They're, the warranties, the free parts for life is definitely unique. And I've actually used that myself personally. Dealing with them on warranties is just, you're not pulling teeth. It's a pleasant experience. And they make probably one of the best big guy kayaks, in my opinion, in the unlimited. In my opinion, that the design of their kayaks were kind of before their time. So the flat transoms on them, the open deck space, the elevated seat, that was really New Canoe back in the day, and they've evolved those kayaks. So the whole design remained similar, but then they added a Millennium seat to it. They add rigging, wiring ports to it. One of the first kayaks in the unlimited that was designed specifically to be motorized. But you can take an unlimited and you can rig out an unlimited with the bow mount motor and the battery for about $1,000 less than the Old Town Autopilot. That Autopilot has got a 10 pounds less thrust than the unlimited would. And, people with seats are kind of funny, but most people, their number one comment on a kayak that doesn't have it is, can you put a swivel seat on that? So, that to me, that seat is really what sells them. But just it's like the chicken breast of the kayak industry. You just season it however you want to.
one thing that Southwest Indiana Outdoors actually mentioned, because we just talked to James from Midwest Kayak Company a couple days ago,
Mhm.
but he uses that unlimited not only for fishing but for duck hunting. So that's
Yes.
kind of the cool thing, is you can actually hunt on it and you can fish on it. So it's
Yeah.
pretty versatile.
That's awesome.
One thing I will say about New Canoe that I'm not a fan of, and it's not a bad thing, but I've had this discussion several times, and I get sucked into these Facebook these Facebook comments a little bit.
Can't help yourself.
But yeah,
No.
and so when people talk about the unlimited, they talk about a 650-pound weight capacity, and that is not true. So the capacity of the hull is 400 pounds.
Okay.
650 pounds is with the scupper plugs in. So New Canoe is honest. They give you that information. But I always tell people, because you'll get somebody on there is like, hey, I'm 350 pounds, I'm 6'2", I want something that's stable for me. It's going to work fine for them. But if you load over that 400 pounds and you've got those scupper plugs in, you have turned that kayak into a sit inside, essentially. If you take any water in that, you're not going to be able to take that scupper plug out and drain it out. You run the risk actually of more water coming into that kayak. So I always just, it's not to steer people away from that kayak specifically, because I definitely challenged the weight capacity of that with all the gear and all the motor. I had a lead acid battery on my unlimited that was about 68 pounds. And, it was fine, but I knew, okay, if you're going to go out, take a bilge pump, take a sponge, take something to drain that water out, because it's more of a safety thing with me. Not many people are going to get past a true 400-pound weight capacity, but you'd be surprised how much stuff people would take with them. And if they're already a big guy anyway, that's why a lot of people like the new canoes. But yeah, it's a safety thing. Say you've got a Newport NK300, a 3-horse, motor on the back. You're going full speed. Say, when you're putting your kayak together, you didn't put the scupper plug in tight enough, or it's getting a little dried out, and from being out in the sun. Say one of those pops out, and you're going full speed, and you're that water is churning up in there. Like it's something to consider with people that are just focusing on that max weight capacity with the scupper plugs in. Is all. It's kind of all I always talk to people about. So
you get sucked in every single time.
Every time it goes, hey, 650-pound weight capacity, you're good, bro. I was like, if you use that same math, then that means you can just add 200 or 300 pounds to every single kayak out there just because you put rubber scupper plugs in the scupper holes. And I'm just not a fan of that, is all.
Yeah.
So let me tell you how much I know this man, because I don't know his list. I'm literally writing it down as we go. Before he said anything, I wrote down weight capacity on it because I knew that's where he was going.
Yeah. And people take me as an anti-new. No, it's not that at all. I just, when somebody gives a company like Bonafide or Old Town, the companies where they do like the math thing where you got to take the hull away from the capacity. I'm like, that's a performance capacity. That's the capacity where it can still perform as intended. That's not a max weight capacity. There's some play in there, but they're at least being honest with you about that performance. They're not saying, hey, if you stick scupper plugs in here, that XTR has got like a 700-pound weight capacity. So that means if you put scupper plugs in there, it's 900, almost 1,000 pounds. No, it's not. It just it'll stay above water, but man, you're playing with you're playing a dangerous game there.
Yeah. We're in the final countdown. Final countdown. Seth, take us away. Give us for those who came in a little late, give us a countdown. We are counting up from 5 best and 5 worst.
So 5 best. Number 5, Old Town. Number 4, Crescent. Number 3, Confluence. Right? I said that right.
Yeah.
Correct? All right. Okay, good. Yeah. Number 2, New Canoe. And then we're up to number 1 of the best. And then the 5 worst, number 5, Jackson Kayaks. Number 4, Ascend. Number 3, Lifetime. Number 2, we don't need to talk about it. I'm just kidding. It's
it's wild, right?
Yeah.
So we got the worst and the best yet to do.
It's still wild about Hobie, because you're saying just a couple of years ago they're number 1. They've dropped significantly in reviews. I mean, not like a place. We're talking
The whole
Yeah.
list.
Yeah, like the entire industry passed them up in a matter of a couple seasons. It's crazy how fast that can happen.
Yeah, should we talk about the fact that both of it, we own a Jackson and a Hobie, which are both in his top?
Yeah.
Because you can't
5
sell them.
worst.
That's why.
Yeah.
You're trying to sell them on Marketplace and no one's buying them because your husband keeps doing, and you guys keep doing podcasts and saying how
Right.
on the bottom of the list. You're stuck with them forever until you start changing your
Yeah,
tune.
that Jackson one hurts a lot more than the Hobie one does. I mean, we've got more money invested in Hobie, obviously, in the garage there. But yeah, that Jackson one, I like, because their roots are my passions. Like, they really revolutionized the river fishing, with the Yakuza, and then but they've kind of gone away from the paddlers, and then they've got like 18 different pedal drive kayaks, and they really got what I call two true fishing kayaks in the Kusa X and the U-Pick. The Bite is a little bit more of a wreck fishing kayak, but it's still and the things they do, like with the Bite, you have the Bite Rec, which is the recreational Bite, which is $9.99. Well, they make an angler edition. The only thing is different about it is they put 2 flush mount rod holders on the back of it, and then they charge you $100 more for that.
Oh gosh.
And yeah, those things cost retail $16 a piece.
Yeah.
$16, yeah.
So
and
it's a different color scheme, so you get the colors. But
oh yeah,
I
mean,
number one worst.
All right. Someone fishing with Mid-South, he said, I'm curious what's about the worst. You can't imagine it's actually Pelican, Sun Dolphin. If you even talk about my Sun Dolphin, I'm ending the stream right now.
Right?
It's my throwing go.
It's not Sun Dolphin, and that's
good.
Odd, but I mean, Sun Dolphin's kind of in a class of its own there.
Number one. I'm waiting for it to pop up in number one. Yeah, for best.
Number one is Brooklyn Kayak Company.
I've heard that as the worst kayak before.
That is by far, and there's going to be that one person out there saying like, "Oh, my Brooklyn kayak, I catch more fish out of that thing, and it's been the greatest kayak ever." That's fine. I'm not hating on you, but my God, when you're talking about one of the worst investments you can ever make is Brooklyn Kayak Company. And it broke my heart a little bit when I saw Brian Latimer, because I watch his videos a lot, BLAT.
My left guy.
And he was talking crap on kayaks there for a long time, and then he got in a friend's kayak and he loved it. But that kayak was a Hobie Compass, I want to say, or a Hobie Outback. And then like, yeah, it's a great kayak. And then next thing you know, he's doing a video with Brooklyn Kayaks. I'm like, bro, come on. So Brooklyn Kayak is one of those what I call COVID pop-up companies where nobody was able to buy your big name kayaks, and even some of the like foreign made kayaks were hard to get a hold of. Well, Brooklyn Kayak Company, they were like one of those ones where you can buy them online, they ship to you. And someone actually posted on a Facebook one time where they said, I'm looking at 2 kayaks, which one should I go with? It was a native native Slayer and a Brooklyn kayak, whatever model they were looking at. But the Brooklyn kayak was $1,000, and it was a pedal drive.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Obviously the native was double that. But I'll say, look, it's like if they're both in your budget, if you're paying half the money for this kayak, you're going to get half of what you really want if you're seriously looking at that Slayer. And I said, that pedal drive is not going to be what you think it is. And sure enough, they ended up buying the Brooklyn kayak, but they posted about it, which I really appreciated. And they said, yeah, this thing is so flimsy. It's plastic. I'm talking about the drive.
The drive,
all
right.
plastic. Yeah. And when they do like public events, and I don't know this from personal experience, so take that for what it is, but one of my former reps with another company said they were there, and that company was putting they had so many drives that they brought extra because the other ones that were taken on the water were crapping out. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, if I was you, I'd have been handing out business cards all over that place because of that. Because the fact that they had to have extra drives just to get through an event, and the average Tom, Dick, and Harry that's buying that thing online are not able to get those replacement drives. Like, that's insane to me.
Can we also talk about the fact that this company sells kayaks that come in pieces?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
modulars?
Like assemble
Yeah,
at home.
they're modular. Like they have ones that are like 2-piece and 3-piece, and I'm like, dude, like no,
But
no thanks.
there's other companies that do that, but just do it a lot better. Like
Yeah.
there's modular, there's 3-piece kayaks, and you can make them into longer ones. They do it better. They're a copycat company, so they're one of those companies you'll see that'll copy like a Propel drive or copy a Hobie Fin drive and make it really really cheap. And what a lot of people don't realize is, when you're looking to get into something, you're looking for that deal. I've done it. I've done it before. You don't want to spend a whole bunch of money. So you see like, well, why would I spend $2,000 on this kayak when I can get this brand new for
They
$1,000?
look the same on the computer
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah. When I go on Amazon, I look at it, I was like, oh, it looks great. The pictures always look great. It's like a computer rendition, or now you don't know what's AI and what's not. So, man, I've never heard good things about it. And I'm talking about from like industry insiders that don't have any affiliations with other. I don't want to throw their name out there, but like they said, like, man, that's just a terrible investment. I'm like, I agree, but people will buy it because it's a cheaper kayak. And these other companies have abandoned that price range. So you get all these little pop-up companies. They haven't been around for very long. They probably won't be around for much longer because they're just like, okay, people are buying this. I'm going to 3D print something really quick to just throw it out there. And then, someone will buy it. And that's kind of where we're at with a lot of those companies. Just Brooklyn Kayak was one of those ones where just people would not stop talking about them during COVID. And I haven't heard anything from any of them of
Nothing
any
positive.
long-term, nothing positive,
Never
nothing
heard.
long-term. Like, we used it once and something broke, or the seat buckle snapped, and it's not like you can go down to, go down to the store and buy a seat buckle. Like, you got to start doing DIY the first week you got it. So
I'm pretty sure the name probably throws people off. I don't know, but I'm guessing they're not made in Brooklyn. But
No.
it's a very American name.
Yeah.
And so you feel like I'm buying a kayak from the United States simply by the brand. And
and even if they were
association.
And if they were made in Brooklyn, when I think of quality fishing kayaks, I think of Brooklyn, New York.
Absolutely. Yeah. Concrete jungle.
Kayak capital of the world.
Their about says they're in New Jersey.
Oh, really? They're in New Jersey? Yeah. They're marketing person.
They're manufactured in New Jersey. The hulls come from Taiwan or China or wherever. That's another thing. The false marketing, just like, oh, they're manufactured, or they're put together in the U.S. or they're assembled in the U.S. Like, that means nothing.
No,
that's the same. If I ordered stuff from China, I put it together in the garage and then I sold it. It's like it's put together right here in the U.S.
Mr. Bluestone just made a perfect comment. Made in Brooklyn, China.
Yeah.
Well done.
The Brooklyn Kayak, the worst. If you hate money, if you loathe money, and you hate fishing that much, but you want to show people how much you hate fishing, that that's still not a good place to go. That's still not a good place to start.
Let's make an observation here, because what is right next to Brooklyn Kayak?
Yeah, I'm gonna get sued for slander here, but that's
Hey Seth, I forget what was number 4 on worst kayaks. Right next to Brooklyn Kayak Company. What company was that?
Oh, I don't. We skipped that one.
Oh, we skipped it. You don't remember what it was right
number
next
4?
to?
It might have been Hobie. Hobie, but
number 4 was Ascend.
They're right next to each other.
Yeah. So we just don't worry about Hobie.
Okay, well, we'll just forgot.
What do we have left? We have the number 1 left. So I'll do the
number 1. So
do the top 5. So we have number 5, Old Town. Number 4, Crescent. Number 3, Confluence. Number 2, New Canoe. And then number 1, we're left with of the best.
Number 1 in 2025 is Big Adventures.
Boom! Come on now.
Come on, we all saw that coming. Come on.
Yeah, Big Adventures is bona fide, native, Liquid Logic, which a lot of people sleep on Liquid Logic, in my opinion.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you are with Big Adventures, they have the same, they have a 5-year warranty on their pedal drives, which is the same as Old Town. They have a limited lifetime hull warranty against defects, which is the same as Old Town. But nobody talks about that warranty with Bonafide like they do the Old Town. And it's because they don't spend the money on all the marketing. But man, Big Adventures, if I would have talked to, even 3 or 4 years ago, you're looking at a very one-dimensional company that just did lake fishing. They had the SS series, the SS 127, the SS 107, and they had an EX 123, which is kind of looked like one of them old cigar boats from Miami Vice, but still a really good, decent kayak. But man, today they have one of the most complete lineups in the game. So they got the RVR for the rivers and streams, which in my opinion is the best bang for your buck. That's about the same price as the Crescent Shoaly, but with there you get easy motorization, you get integrated anchoring on the bow and the stern, that you don't have to do any drilling. You can do foot steering on it. Is the foot pedals that come with it are, they do double as, free sliding. And the seat is phenomenal. If I could change one thing about that kayak, it'd probably be, I'd like to see a lower seat option for if you get into some, really choppy water, but you got the PWR 129, which I still think is their best kayak, even with the XTR out. You have the XTR, so you have a big boat option. That's the kayak where people say, why don't you just buy a boat? I was like, well, yes and no. You need a trailer for that kayak. That's not something you're going to enjoy throwing up on the back of a truck. I've taken an XTR out. I've done videos of me paddling it and motorizing it. It doesn't paddle terribly. I'm not saying I want to go a couple of miles in it or anything, but that thing drafts amazingly well. And
you're forgetting one major one, Wendell.
Come on.
Yeah. And I was saving that for last.
P127 is what you're thinking best for last. All right, sorry. Yeah.
What put them over the top is the P127.
Come on, that's what I'm talking about. You want to hear something funny? I literally just got a text message from someone who just bought a P127 Raccoon Creek Outfitters, and on January 27th, yesterday, that's what the day he showed. I got the invoice, $1,999.
Wow! Give that man a hype button.
Come on, that's like number 7 tonight. I don't think I've ever. We sold more tonight than.
And another thing too is, with pedal drives, the Titan X is amazing. That was the most stable kayak I've ever been on. Is the Titan X 12.5. I recorded a whole segment of the video of me on the water, and I don't have the best balance. Christina will happily tell everybody that I'm gonna get a little uneasy. I'm standing up, I'm filming, I'm flipping and cover, and it's heavy, but you're not buying that kayak because it's lightweight. They make a lightweight kayak that's a pedal drive and the Propel 10, and they've also got the new Slayer Max LTE, LT. So I guess that's going to be their new lightweight kayak. They kind of make a kayak for everybody. So if you don't want the big, heavy, cumbersome kayak, you got a lightweight pedal drive. You got a river kayak. You got a lake paddling kayak that you can add a motor to it in the SS series and the PWR, which again, the PWR is my personal kayak, and that to me, that is the fastest motorized kayak out there, in my opinion. Again, integrated foot steering, comes with a flip down rudder from the factory, great storage. It even has a catch storage that's built into the front hatch. I absolutely love that kayak. I'm going to do some video probably this year of me taking the PWR on the river, because it kind of show how versatile that kayak really is. But I've absolutely enjoyed that kayak.
You should hear it in the back of his truck with the rocker.
Yeah, it's got so much rocker to it. So again, with that motor on the back or the front, it just planes across the water. But that rocker, when you put it on the back of a truck, just like with a flat bed, and it hit the brakes or accelerate, you can hear it rocking back there.
I love it. I had a buddy. Oh, go ahead, Christina.
Oh, I was going to say one other thing that he's not mentioning is with Big Adventures, you have the Liquid Logic. I want to throw out a shout
Yeah,
out to one of the really good rec kayaks out there.
the best, the best.
And please help me out with the name of that thing now.
Kiowa.
There we go.
There you go.
It's that Kiawah. They make
Like
it in
Kiowa,
a
Ireland,
10.
down there in the yep.
Is a 10-foot and a 12-foot version, and that has that when I left OMTC, that was the number one selling recreational kayak. That overtook the Tarpon because the price on it, $950 for the 10-foot version. You can get the 12-foot Kiowa for under $1,000, and that is the same frame seat on it.
Yep.
Got deck padding on it. They actually added the deck padding for last year, and I'm sure this year coming up. And so you get more for the same price as it was the year before. And that's probably one of the best paddling kayaks I've ever been in. Christina's been on it probably more than I have as far as just paddling it on the riverways. It's stable because it's wide where it needs to be, but it's got that really sharp entryway, that really nice keel. But that's one of the most underrated kayaks out there right now, in my opinion.
All right. Well, Seth, any questions there?
Yeah, I got a problem. I Googled Brooklyn kayaks while we were talking about it, and now like nonstop ads.
Yep.
Yeah.
Welcome to the rest of your life.
Welcome to the jungle, baby.
Oh no. No, that's all.
That's worse than it's almost like Temu. It's just me mentioning Temu in this video is just another 6 years of Temu ads on my phone.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how to get out of that algorithm deal there. Oh, well, it wasn't on Instagram, so I don't have the algorithm yet. I just
nope, it's connected to everything. You're screwed.
Just start looking at Hobies and Bass Pro.
Go back to Hobie. Yeah.
We're Googling Hobies.
All right. We'll take one question, then we'll close this out. We're still at like pushing 120, 130 people live right now. Thank you so much. If you have not yet hit that like button, please help us out, get some replay value. The YouTube just likes the likes, man. They just push it.
Yeah.
After, I mean, this is sometimes our shows go 2,000-3,000 over the period of the next year, and has a lot to do with people interacting with it. Thank you so much. One of the last questions of the night from D. Beavers, thoughts on South African company Van Hunks?
I'm not going to hate on them. I've seen, and Christina may not remember this. It was in Northwest Arkansas. We stopped by this outdoor. We saw guns and arrows, and we thought that would be a place to check out. They had Van Hunks in there. There is some copycat going on, but I mean, even the American companies do that to each other. I've never had one out on the water. Just looking at the hull, it reminds me a lot of a feel-free kayak. It's got kind of that same consistency to it, but again, you got a comfortable seat on it. It looks kind of mean, which I think draws a lot of people to it. The biggest thing that I would caution people with the foreign-made kayaks is the warranty support. A lot of places you buy that stuff at don't support that. You're not going to be able to get parts. You're not going to be able to. What if something cracks or something goes wrong with it? Are they going to replace that kayak? Then that warranty, while it may read a certain way, it's only going to be as good as the person honoring it. So I'm not saying they don't, but it's something to think about. So
yeah,
it's still a lot of money. Yeah, just put it that way.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see Van Hunks right there.
There it is.
Yeah. So, interesting thing about Van Hunks is I know the owners.
Okay.
Their main shop is about 15 minutes from my house here in South Florida, Sarasota.
Okay.
So everything you said there is accurate. There's nothing you said there is inaccurate. But I will add to that in that they are exceptional people. I would say their kayaks are not for they're more entry level, right?
Yeah,
like they're not for the folks, and there's some of them are pretty pricey, but they have like top-notch customer service. So that's one thing that they take. If you look at like their Google reviews for the area here, it's like 5.0 with it just across the board. They're amazing with their customer service. They'll mail you all the stuff. So there are some like copycat things. Like you said, they're trying to imitate some of the bigger brands.
Everybody's doing that though.
Right. So
you even see it with Native and New Canoe. Like they're both doing the Millennium seats. They're both doing the access plate. So like it's
well, that's what works. They're looking, and I don't hate them for it, but they're looking at what the market is doing and what's working. So they're trying to imitate
what do
that.
people want?
Like.
Yeah.
And I was on a Van Hunks for over a year. I had 2 of them actually. I still have 2. I just don't fish out of them just because I think Hobie's superior to them, and it's not the second worst one. Let's just mess with it. But yeah. So Van Hunks, and to answer your question, Van Hunks is. I picked one up for $400 on Facebook. I live in South Florida too. Not mad about it. Yeah, it's a decent entry level kayak, I would say. I don't know that it's great at everything, but it's decent entry.
There are definitely worse options out there. And the thing that I like about some of these companies is they're not trying to be the best. They're just they're not the worst either. So there are some good things out there. Another company that I've kind of had some headbutting online with is Hoodoo. So, and I won't go too far into this. Hoodoo was it was one of the things that Jay at Bearded Dad, he put out, what's the worst kayak company out there? And I said Hoodoo. I got so many messages from pro staff guys, because what happens is, and this is my problem with pro staffs, is somebody comes on there, they're looking to get into the sport, and they come on and say, hey, I'm between a Jackson Bite and a Pescador Pro. Just thrown into it. And then somebody gets on there and says, Hoodoo, and then they got a link and all this. Like, if you're a pro staff, you should say you're a pro staff. Like, I'm sponsored by them. And you should also know every boat in that lineup, not just your boat. And it's just they get pushy. And then one of the people that works at Hoodoo, because my biggest gripe was they claim to be US made and they're not. They say manufactured in Texas. Well, that doesn't mean everything is made in Texas. Now, to their credit, they said they are making changes to make that happen. And if they are doing that or already doing that, more power to them. But they're another one of those companies that people buy them because of all the hoopla online, and they get it, and it's not what they think it is. And people at Hoodoo themselves will actually say, we're not a Hobie, we're not a bona fide or a Native, and that's, as long as companies do that, that's setting the expectation. They're not saying this is going to be the greatest kayak that you've ever owned for $800. We all wish that could happen, but it's not factual. You do get what you pay for. There's no ivory towers in the kayak industry. There's no corporate offices that take up these are small town, dirty manufacturing. Like it's something else. There's no rich people in the kayak industry. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, D Beaver said ads for Hoodoo are just as bad as Brooklyn. I will attest to that, so don't Google it if you don't want it spamming your feed.
Yeah.
And I said they're trying to do some things that where they can actually say they're manufactured in the US, because in order to make that claim, a certain percentage of your kayak has to be made in the US, like made. And some of these companies, a lot of these companies we're talking about, that's why the price goes up. You're talking about raw materials. You're talking about resins and oils and mixing up. You're paying somebody to research and development. You're paying pro staff to take them out and test them. You're paying all of this. And those, you're talking about rotating a mold while it's being heated for that even coverage. They have quality checks. That all costs money, plus the truck driver, plus the guy running the forklift, plus the guy that unloads it at the kayak shop, and then the guy that sells it at the kayak shop. So that's why the prices get to where they are. Has it gotten crazy? Yes. But comparatively, when you look at what a used boat is, I'm talking about a real fishing boat. I'm not talking about an aluminum John boat that someone just beat to hell and they're selling it for $100. There's no comparison between the two prices of them. I'll die on that soapbox, but you gotta get more to value, and you gotta get more to getting people into the industry for, not thinking they have to spend $2,500 just to catch fish, because we all know better. It's people have been fishing in canoes for decades, and chopping down the shaft on an old trolling motor, and or an outboard motor that's just smoking and dripping oil in the river. They've been doing it for years. They're just refining it now is all they're doing. Doesn't mean you got to buy it. There's still those other options out there. So,
yep. All right, we're coming to the end of our time here. I did have a question from Charlie Sanders Fishing. Wendell, when are you getting that Bonafide sponsorship? As soon as Bonafide writes me back, I would love that. I've been loyal and love that company. And get something going. Maybe this year is the year. We'll see what happens.
Bonafide's definitely got their share of them. I know, Gene and Chad are, I guess, the biggest ones, but even guys that work at the office have their own social media followings and all that. So, but yeah, we had Tyler Brown. He's a COO of Big Adventures on our live stream as well. Great people as well. Like I said, great companies are built by great people, I think, and the kayak industry is no different.
I would love to lock arms with them. I think that this makes sense. So, see, stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned. And I need an introduction, Mr. Bearded Paddler. All right, folks. If you happen to disagree, have a different take, you're like, hey, I think this should be number 1, number 4. This one's way off. Let us know in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation moving. Always appreciate
if you disagree, do me a favor. Subscribe to the Bearded Paddler on YouTube and pick a fight with me in the comments.
Yes.
It's the best way to suck me in.
That is accurate.
Yeah.
There you go.
And all honesty, I appreciate everybody that watches a video or watches me talking on a video. I thoughts and prayers out to you for that. But I definitely appreciate the support and definitely appreciate being on this show as always.
Also, if you don't disagree and just want to poke the bear, please go over to Bearded Paddler and just make something up and get them all riled up, please.
Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe. Help me
do
out.
all that stuff.
Yeah,
but just rile them up.
Do all that. Standard.
Easiest way to rile him up: talk about weight capacity.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
I'll give an award to the person that has the longest thread where you sucked him in to a.
It's out there. It is out there. I don't get like belligerent or anything. It's just like I'm trying to like, hey, like guy, and then I'll just end it with a okay.
There you go. Sometimes you just gotta give up. I usually give up right out of the gate.
Sometimes you just gotta go to bed.
Seth, someone had a question here. Does Seth have a channel too? I'll let you answer that, brother.
Yeah, so I film everything I do. I'm on Instagram at SOFLO Taylor, SoFlo Taylor. You can find me on there, TikTok as well, mostly on Instagram. But I will be starting a YouTube channel, throwing everything on there. I have one that I put stuff on. I just don't have it public. So it's not there for anyone to see. But I am going to be starting one here and putting all my practice videos. I have a Bassmaster event on Kissimmee this weekend. Thursday through Sunday, I'll be out there. I have the Kayak Adventure Series. I have all kinds of tournaments. Mine is mostly focused on tournament angling. And if you want to know anything about forward-facing sonar, I do a lot of that as well. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff coming.
Hey, make Hobie great again.
I'm just trying to get a bunch of W's.
maybe you're the guy to do it.
Maybe. I love it, man. I love my Hobie. But, again, I haven't been on else, so you don't know what you don't know.
Well,
the real reason he's the co-host because I want to make him a Big Adventures believer. Just give it some time, folks.
Oh yeah,
we'll see.
Give it some time. Bring him over to the dark side.
There's apparently 3 of us on Team Bonafide right now, Seth. So you're kind of
just a matter of time.
Might have to set up an event or something. See who takes the win, and whoever wins, everyone has to transition their brand to that kayak.
I have both. I'm done.
We'll just do a race.
Oh yeah, that's true. I'd probably lose that one too. Yeah.
We did that with we got a good friend of mine. He's got a Hobie 12-footer, and we both had the same motor guide on the front of our kayaks. And I'm literally just
we're racing for pink slips. Yeah.
Well, folks,
but a lot of features on that though.
I I appreciate everyone listening in for as long as you did. Still over 100 people live. Grateful for you. Hit the like button. Head over to Bearded Paddler. I know you guys also have a podcast. I'm about sharing the love on the podcast since everyone, their mom's creating one right now. You've had one for a minute, so head over to what's yours called. Where can they find you? You can listen.
It's a Destination Kayak. You can watch it on my YouTube channel, just like here, and you can also check us out on Spotify. Anywhere you get your Apple, iTunes, any of that. Anywhere you get your podcasts, you can listen to us talk. We have a lot of guests on, just like Wendell does here. And it's usually centered around the kayak industry and what's going on there. Whether it's people from these companies or people like Wendell or Chad, or we try to have some fun on there. But it's a lot of interactive stuff. Christina's on there always, so she definitely kind of holds it together. Otherwise it just go off the rails all the time.
Yep, we all have our significant others help us do that. There's a comment I want to make mention about. Justin Kahn said, Bonafide is overrated. Mega Bass of kayaks. You are banned for life, Justin. For life.
No hype button for him?
Nope. There is a unhype button. And banned. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next Tuesday night on the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. Thanks, all of y'all. Thank you, Bearded Paddlers. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Christina. You guys freaking rock. You guys have a good one. I'll see you.
Yep, take care.
I appreciate you, man.